It is evident to us that suffering is part of our lives from the moment of our birth. We are born crying. Nobody likes to suffer, but suffering is inevitable. The big difference is how we understand it and how we deal with it. Since the arrival of sin to humanity, we are a broken world, plagued by injustice, pain, tragedies, wars. So we ask ourselves, why does God allow all this suffering? The answer that can shed light on this great mystery is love. God allows all this because He loves us. What? God has created us to enter into a filial relationship with each one of us. To take place this encounter, the human being has to be free. He has to have the possibility of accepting or rejecting this invitation. Otherwise, if we are forced to love, it is not a relationship of love, but of slavery. Human freedom, being in the hands of an imperfect and sinful being, experiences moments of suffering, not because you look for them, although sometimes that may be the case, but because they arrive when we least expect it, fruits of nature or human sin. Natural disasters, diseases, violence, abuse, murders, slavery, human trafficking. The list is very long. On the path to holiness, the saints of God, whose lives we know, when suffering came, they turned it into a path of redemption. They united it with the saving sacrifice of Jesus, and this brought them closer to God.
Jesus told us, "Whoever wants to follow me must renounce himself, take up his cross and follow me." Matthew chapter 16:24.
If we recognize that we are on a pilgrimage to the Father's house, this life is the preparation for the encounter with the Holy Trinity in glory. We will give suffering a sanctifying effect.
St. Peter tells us, "For what merit would there be in enduring punishment when one has committed a mistake? On the other hand, if they can endure being treated badly when they have acted well, that is great before God. For this you have been called, since Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example, and you must follow in his footsteps." 1 Peter chapter 2:20-21.
But Jesus encourages us not to faint in the face of suffering. "I have spoken to you about these things so that you may have peace in me. You will find suffering in the world, but take heart, I have conquered the world." John 16:33.
Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta said, "Love until it hurts. If it hurts, it's a good sign." True love involves sacrifice. If you have doubts about this, you just have to look at a crucifix and you will see the most amazing act of love.
Jesus did not want to suffer. We see it clearly when he prayed on the mountain of Gethsemane, asking the Father to free him from that cup, but still accepted his will. In his humanity, he suffered greatly knowing what awaited him in his passion and crucifixion. But after Jesus lived his passion and cross, the resurrection was proof that suffering does not have the last word, but eternal life, full life in the presence of God in heaven.
Catholics see suffering as a path to salvation and purification, if we unite it with the suffering and sacrifice of Jesus, as St. Paul tells us, "Now I am happy when I have to suffer for you, because in this way I complete in my flesh what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ for the good of his body, which is the Church." Colossians chapter 1:24.
When we read the lives of the saints, we discover that their closeness to God was greater when they experienced suffering. They gave it a value of sanctification and asked God for the strength to face it with dignity and service to God and the Church. With God's grace, we will know how to give suffering the value it deserves, the means to sanctify ourselves and live in union with God for all eternity.